What is going on, ladies and gentlemen of YouTube? My name is Vinny Vega and I'm back at it with a PC build video. This is a standalone system just for streaming, and what I mean by that is this will not include a GPU. So this is not a gaming rig in particular, but if you did add a graphics card to the build, it will be a full-on gaming rig that's just badass. A lot of people who are serious about doing Twitch streaming tend to have another computer just for streaming, because if you're gaming and streaming on a single PC, it is very taxing on the system. And with all the craziness going on with the new GTX 1070 and 1080, with NVIDIA not having availability for it, or all the board partners releasing it yet, not to mention the pricing is all out of whack with the Founders Edition thrown in the mix. And on top of that, you have AMD about to release their new cards at the end of the month, the RX 480 and the RX 460, 470. So I figured I'd let the dust settle, let the board partners release their custom PCBs for both sides of the fence, and then I'll tackle another gaming PC. Considering that you'd have two PCs to work around, I figured you'd need to save on some space, so this is a mini ATX build. This build is aimed at both power efficiency, speed, and silence, and I believe this build will be able to handle all of that for your streaming needs. This build is priced at just under 600 bucks, and I wanted to keep it just around 500. But spending that extra money will help in the long run, so without further ado, let's start out with the CPU. For the CPU, I chose the Intel Core i5-6600K, this is clocked at 3.5 GHz, a quad-core CPU at $220. Even though it's just a quad-core, it's still going to handle programs like OBS and XSplit just fine. Those 4 cores are very powerful, and not to mention you can overclock it as well. This i5 also includes integrated graphics for obvious reasons. The only caveat to it is it does not have a standalone stock cooler, which is okay considering that if you want to overclock a CPU, you don't want a stock cooler anyways. So for the cooler, I chose the Coolermaster Hyper 212 Evo for $30. This is just a stupid deal for a great cooler. In fact, I know from personal experience because I have this very cooler in my rig right now. The fan is very silent and it cools efficiently. There's not much more I can say about this. The price to performance ratio for this product is just amazing. The only thing is you gotta just make sure the case fits the cooler. The Hyper 212 is notorious for not fitting in cases because of how tall it is, so keep that in mind. For the motherboard, I chose the Gigabyte GA-Z170M D3H. This is a micro ATX motherboard on the LGA 1151 socket, and of course this board will allow you to overclock that i5-6600K as well. You can pick this up for $90 and it has plenty of features to go along with it, such as DDR4 memory support up to 64 gigs from 2133 MHz to 3200 MHz, RAID support, 3 SATA Express ports, onboard USB 3.0, unfortunately no SLI support, but it does support Crossfire for the AMD side. For the RAM, I chose a single stick of 16 GB of KINGSTON FURY HyperX. This is DDR4 of course, at 2400 MHz, and this is going for 63 bucks right now. I chose one stick because that leads for future upgrade to up to 64 gigs if you got one stick of 16 GB each. But honestly, that's just way overkill. 16 gigabytes is really all you need, and 32 is crossing it a little bit too, in my opinion. Like, that's as far as I would go as far as memory. And it really is crazy how far the prices have come down on DDR4 memory. Before, 16 gigabytes of memory would cost you at least 100 bucks or more. $63 for 16 gigabytes is just a great deal all around. And speaking of price dropping, SSDs have gone down quite a bit as well, which is why I chose one in this build. I went with a 240 gigabyte from ADATA for 55 bucks. This is a really good price for an SSD, especially considering that for 240 gigabytes of storage, you were paying at least 150 or more, not even too long ago. So the prices have drastically come down. Now I do realize the name may not sound familiar to some of you guys, and it may not benchmark as well as some other SSDs, but as far as real world performance, you should not notice any difference whatsoever compared to other SSDs. 240 gigs is plenty of space for your OS, OBS, XSplit, Sony Vegas, and you can edit just fine with using the SSD and the i5. Considering those facts, not only this is going to be a good dedicated streaming PC, but it's also going to be a good editing PC as well. For the power supply, I chose the Rosewell 500 watt 80 plus bronze certified for 45 bucks. This is a semi-modular power supply which should make cable management a breeze. And Rosewell is a very good brand and they've been around for a while, so you're going to get your money's worth out of this power supply. And I know 500 watts is definitely overkill for this system, especially considering there's no GPU in it. But like I said earlier, you might want to opt for a graphics card later down the line. Not to mention, power supplies is one of those things that you just want to buy and have forever, because power supplies tend to last for several builds. So even if you upgrade to different parts later down in the future, that power supply should last you a significant amount of time. For the case, I went with the Fractal Define Mini for $90. And I believe you can get the windowed version for $100 even, $10 more. Whatever floats your boat. This is not the windowed version, however. This is in a micro ATX form factor, and it has plenty of room for all your parts and also has plenty of room for a decent sized GPU. At minimum, you can fit a GPU at 10.24 inches, or if you remove the drive cages, you can fit one that's 15.75 inches long. It also features USB 3.0 on the front I/O, 6 drive cages that double as both for 3.5 inch drives, which are regular mechanical hard drives, or 2.5 drives, which is the one in this build, the SSD. Fractal is just a good brand in general. In fact, the last build I recommended a Fractal Define S for the build. And their Define series is unlike any other brand. They got the sound dampening material to make your PC nice and quiet. And if I'm not mistaken, it also supports water cooling as well. So if you want to get that for your CPU later down the line, you can do so, at least as far as all-in-one solutions go. With this case, it's not super small, so it's still quite big, but it's not as big as a mid-tower ATX or a full-size case. So it's still going to be fairly compact, and you can even double this as, say, maybe even a LAN PC as well, bringing it to LAN parties whenever. Just grab your GPU out of your main system, throw it in this, and then you're on your way. I think that'll wrap things up for this video, for this dedicated streaming PC. If you guys have questions, comments, concerns, go ahead and leave it in the comments down below. And any requests for any future builds, you can do that as well. But like I said, I want to wait a little while before, all the chaos kind of settles for the graphics cards going around right now. Because I do want to do some builds with the new GPUs. Hope you guys have a badass day today, and I'll see you on the next one.